All right, let's do this. The purpose of this video is to show you how to solve general equations with trigonometry with your graphing calculator. So you're going to need your graphing calculator here. So if you don't have it sitting right next to you, pause it, grab it, and come right back. So the first thing we need to do is talk about the period of a function, because we are going to need to know that. So the period of a function for sine and cosine, as you remember, is 2 pi. And for tangent, it's just pi. Now, when we talk about sine squared and cosine squared, it's half of that, so it's pi. And for tangent squared, it's half, so that would be pi over 2. And then if you have sine times cosine, that would be very similar to saying sine squared or cosine squared, since we're doing sine times sine or cosine times cosine. When you're just multiplying each of those, it's going to end up being half of what one of them normally would be, so it's just going to be pi as well. Then the period could also be found the good old-fashioned way, like with graphing. So it's always 2 pi divided by our b value for sine and cosine, and for tangent, it would just be pi divided by b. So sine of 2x means your period is 2 pi divided by 2, so it's pi. The cosine of 4x would be pi over 2, because 2 pi divided by 4 is pi over 2. And the tangent of 6x, since tangent is normally just pi, this would be pi over 6. So it is pretty important to be able to find the period before you start solving the problem, because you're going to need it for your window, and you're also going to need it for your final answers, because we are finding the general solutions. All right, so one little tip. If it's not equal to 0, you should put it equal to 0. And another thing, remember, x refers to radians and theta refers to degrees. So for problems 1 and 2, you're going to need to be in radians. So make sure your calculator is in radian mode. And want to talk a little bit about the window. You're more concerned of where the intersection is. And as I mentioned, if we always have the right side equal to 0, that's going to make a few things easier. So for your y min and your y max, it could be negative 10 to 10, it could be negative 5 to 5, it could be negative 1 to 1. It really doesn't matter. The x minimum we want to keep at 0, but the x max is what's going to change. So when you're solving these, you can set everything up except for your x max. That is going to end up being the period. So the first thing you want to do in any of these problems is make sure it's equal to 0. Okay, we got that. Second thing is you want to state your period. So tangent squared, as we know, is pi over 2. And secant, which is pretty much the same as cosine, is 2 pi. So which one do you want to use? You want to go with the bigger one, because you need to wait until this secant completes one full cycle. So tangent squared, that's going to do it a couple times, but we have to wait for secant. So the period for this example is going to be 2 pi. And that's what you're going to want to change your x maximum to. So you want your x max to be the period. So we go to our calculator, and in the x max, we just want to make sure we just type 2. And you can just use the pi key. And as soon as you click enter, it'll change it to a decimal value, and you're good to go. So now you go to y equals. In y1, we're going to type exactly what we see, but you have to remember to be a little bit careful. So in y1, how you would type tangent squared x would be tangent, and since the parentheses automatically pop up, you're going to put your x, and you're going to square the outside of it. You want to square the entire function, not just the x. Minus, now remember, there's no such thing as a secant button. So you're going to need to, as a fraction, do 1 divided by cosine. I suggest parentheses. So 1 divided by cosine. And if the parentheses automatically pop up, you're going to type your x, and you're going to need to close it once for the x and another one for your fraction. And then you're going to subtract your 1. In y2, you're going to press 0. And then all you're going to do is graph it. And this is what the graph looks like. So the only thing you need to do now is find all of those intersections. But your calculator is going to find the intersection and store it as x. So I'm going to show you how to find one of the intersection points and how to use it. And then we've been finding intersections with the calculator for quite some time now. I'm sure you can handle the rest. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to press second trace, which takes us to the calculate menu. And number 5 is the intersect. Now I'm going to find the first one. So you just need to take your little blinky thing, your little spider, and take them till you get close to the first intersection on this graph. And once you get close, you just need to press enter 3 times. And the calculator is going to find it for you. So it says it's 1.0471976, but how are you going to find the exact value of that? So what we need to remember is this is in radians. So we're going to quit out of here. So we're just going to do second quit. And the calculator will automatically store that as your x value. So just to show you, all you would have to do is press x equals, and you see you get that exact same value. So in order to change this into radians for an exact answer, we're just going to take our x and we're going to divide it by the pi key. And that'll take out the pi, leaving you with 0.333. Now you can just change that to a fraction. And obviously it's 1/3. So you just found the first intersection, which is going to be, and I highly recommend sketching the graph for these. Just a quick little sketch, doesn't need to be perfect. The first intersection is pi over 3. And now you can go back to the graph. You can go find all those intersections on your own. Just make sure you take x divided by pi and change it to a fraction if needed. You're going to find that this one is pi, and you're going to find that this guy right here is 5 pi over 3. So how do we write our final answer? Well, you need to list all 3 of them, but since we're finding general values, x is equal to pi over 3 plus your period, so 2 pi k. And we're also going to have pi plus 2 pi k. And our last one is 5 pi over 3 plus 2 pi k. And that's it. So you need to find all the intersections, but the calculator does all the work for you. Okay, that's it. So in the next example, I'm just going to step you through what you would do, and you can use your calculator to do the rest. So in Y1, I would like you to type 4 sine x times cosine x minus the square root of 3. And in Y2, you're going to type 0. It's easier to just keep Y2 as always 0. And now you got to think about your period here. So we only have a sine times cosine, which you remember, sine times cosine is pi. So from there, all you have to do is type it in your calculator. You're going to get a little graph that looks like this. And all you're going to do is find the intersections, which are pi over 6 and pi over 3. And then you just write your final answer. X is equal to pi over 6 plus your pi k and pi over 3 plus your pi k. And that's it. You're good to go for this example. So now there's only 2 more, and now that you know how to use your calculator, basically these 2 are in degrees, so make sure you change your calculator in degrees. And I would like you to try to finish these on your own. Just make sure you type y1 very carefully and make sure y2 is 0. So in this case, you're going to want to subtract your square root of 3 over 2 to the left side first, and sketch a graph, find your intersections, write your final answer, and you're good to go. So give it a try. Let's see what happens. So for number 3, if you did it correctly, you have 28 and 178, both plus your 180k. Remember, you are in degrees, so sine of 2 theta would be pi, but we know pi is 180 degrees when we're in degrees. Just make sure you enter this very carefully in the calculator, find your intersections, sketch the graph so I can see what you did, and you are good to go. So number 14 is your last one. So go ahead and, or I'm sorry, number 4, pause the video and give that one a shot, and then you're all done. The trickiest thing about this one was typing it in your calculator correctly. So if you typed y1 exactly how you see it, and 0 gets y, or gets your y2, and all you have to do is graph it. Your period is 18 degrees because it is tan of 10 theta. So pi, or 180 divided by 10, is how you end up with your 18-degree period. So there was only one intersection, and it's 16 degrees, so 16 plus 18K, and you are good to go. That's it. This is Longo, and I'm out. See you, bye.